France battles Islamist infiltration by suing line student in hijab row. In France, in a stark defense of French secularism, Prime Minister Gabriel Attal has announced the government's intention to sue a high school student for falsely accusing a principal of assault following a confrontation over her headscarf at Maurice Ravel Lycée. I don't know how to pronounce anything French in eastern Paris. Um, at that school. The accusation led to the principal's resignation after he received death threats, highlighting the tension between France's secular laws and its Muslim community. Attal's firm stance, quote, the state will always stand with these officials from those who are on the front line faced with these breaches of secularism, these attempts of Islamist entryism into our educational establishments, underscoring the government's commitment to upholding laïcité, aka their version of secularism, amid rising concern over Islamist threats. This incident not only reflects the ongoing debate over religious symbols in French state institutions, but also challenges faced by educators in navigating these contentious waters, further strained by recent Islamist attacks against teachers. So let's dig into this, and I will provide a little bit of background. Okay, so in France, since 2004, I think, the hijab has been banned within public schools. So if you are attending a public school, you are not allowed to be wearing the hijab. Now, especially if you're under the age of 18. So there was this student, and she was actually above the age of 18. And she was at school on the school property, and it was her and two other friends. And the exact circumstances weren't clear, but they were wearing the hijab. And this principal goes over and tells them to remove it because it's against the law. Because the hijab has been banned since 2004 and the abaya was banned within the past like 2 years, 2 3 years. Um so you're not allowed to be wearing the hijab or abaya in public school property. So or and it's not even just the hijab, it is all religious symbols. You're not allowed to be wearing a Jewish skull cap, you're not allowed to be wearing a Sikh turban. None of it. Let's just be clear. Um, so the principal goes over to the girls and tells them to remove their hijab. And two of the girls comply, and one of the girls refuses. And according to the reporting, like attempted to intimidate the principal. Now, the alleged incident is that this girl alleges that then the principal grabbed her on the shoulder and removed her hijab forcefully or attempted to remove her hijab forcefully. That's what she alleges. There was a government um, investigation, and the government has ruled that this is completely false, that this did not happen. As soon as this alleged incident happened, the principal had to go into early retirement. He had to quit and go into hiding. There have been death threats against him and death threats against the school. The school has had to go under police protection. And the in after the government investigation, they're like, this isn't true. This is all false. And so now the government is actually suing this girl. They're suing her because they're like, this didn't happen. This isn't true. And what's so interesting is that there has been unequivocal support for this teacher in France. I'm
Wow.
talking the head of the Socialist Party has spoken out against them, to the head of the far right parties have spoken out against them, the prime minister, I think Macron made a statement, like, there is unanimous support for this teacher. Like, France France is taking this very, 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 very seriously because, 1, France does not take threats to laïcité lightly. They're very hardcore about their laïcité. And particularly because there have been multiple teachers who have been murdered by Islamists within the past few years, and it has deeply scarred the French public consciousness. In 2020, Samuel Pati was his civics teacher who was beheaded. I'm talking full decapitation in the sidewalk of a Paris suburb because there was a girl who lied saying that she was in class when he was showing Charlie Hebdo cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad and asked Muslim students to leave. And she lied and she told this story. And then she went to tell her parents, and the parents told the local mosque, and the local mosque started blasting his name, started blasting where he works, and then a freaking Chechen terrorist who had been a refugee living inside of France since he was around the age of 6, at the time he was 18. This freaking psycho went and then went to the school, bribed some of the students to identify the teacher, and then beheaded him straight up in the street before he was shot dead by police. Meanwhile, then that psycho, that freaking jihadi, his body was extradited to Chechnya where he was buried as a hero. Okay, and all of that originated because there was this student that lied on him. Samuel Pati's son, who was 5 years old at the time, will never have a father because the student lied on him. Then in October of 2023, so very, very recently, this didn't get as much news coverage because of the Hamas attack, right? And there was so much going on. And also, like, after Hamas attacked, like, we saw this explosion of terrorism and lone wolf attacks around the world, right? So there's a lot that got lost in the mist. In October of 2023, there was another incident where another teacher was murdered in a knife attack by a former student who was an Islamist yelling Allahu Akbar. This happened less than a year ago. And so France is taking the safety of their teachers very, very seriously because, like the new prime minister said, that we stand with those officials who are on the front line faced with these breaches of secularism. Because, for example, if as an element of secularism, and you can debate whether this should be the case or not, but right now on the books, as an element of France's secularism, you are not allowed to be wearing these religious symbols in public institutions, even school. Maybe you don't like it, that can be debated, but that's what's on the books and that's what's on the law. So if you're in the schools, that means that these teachers have to be the ones to enforce that law. That means that they have to be the ones enforcing laïcité. That means is that if people don't like it, they're going to get the blowback first. They're going to be threatened first. And that's exactly what happened here. And I don't know, I think it's really good to see France being aggressive about this because here's the thing, like people might be like, okay, this seems a little overblown. Like there was a Belgian NGO against Islamophobia that was writing about this, and they're in Belgium, by the way, because they got banned from France. Um, Basically saying that this whole thing has been blown out of proportion. But like, how can you say that when you literally are having teachers beheaded in the streets over lies? Like, that scarred the French consciousness so much, and then people said that France had a super overblown response to that, because then this was something that was already in the works, but at the time when Samuel Paty was beheaded, people who have been in Atheist Republic for a while will remember that very shortly afterwards, Macron unveiled all these measures and new laws and new prescriptions against Islamist separatism within France. Very shortly afterwards. And those were laws that were actually, like, already in the works for some time, but then this really gave, like, new urgency to it, right? And, so this is, like, a very serious matter, and people know that these lies can get people killed because it happened, like, so recently, right? I mean, how do you forget something like that? I will never be able to get the image because after Samuel Pati's murderer beheaded him in the street, he took a photo of it and posted it online. Like, I can never get that image out of my mind. And, and when it comes to the case of Samuel Paty and the legal ramifications that have happened to the students who were, responsible for lying on him and then causing community incitement of hatred against him, I think the punishment to the students was woefully inadequate. Although there are the parents of those students who are responsible for spreading it throughout the community, are also gonna be receiving prosecution in a separate case. Um, Anyways, I feel like I've been completely dumping. Armin, please chime in here.
This two effects of this. First of all, now every time some of these Muslims would want to make a false accusation or to use, because the, the Muslim community in many uh, Western or liberal countries, because they don't have the power of the law, like in Islamic countries, they try to use intimidation and scare of violence as a way to silence people or to get people to bend to Islam, to submit to Islam, right? Um, and now this, if this backfires, and they are the one who are actually intimidated, because that was what they were trying to do with this teacher, like just spread like, oh, this teacher came and tried to remove my hijab. Now he has to be scared. Now he has to be worried about his life. And then people are scared now to do these things because they see the reaction. And now the community in France has shown solidarity, and they're not willing to submit. In fact, now you are the one you try to intimidate the teacher, but now this is happening to you. And I hope the Muslim community sees this and see that if they want to try to do this to people to try to get them to submit to Islam, they are the ones who have to actually submit to laïcité, because now the society is coming after them and they're going to sue them for all the damages and the threats and all the, and again, this is the combination of using criminal law and civil law, because this part suing them is civil law. If you cause hardship for people in countries where they have a good legal system, they could sue you for that. They could ask for damages. So if you just make false accusations, now you are, you know, they can come after you. And so this is good. It sets a precedent for France. But I also hope this normalizes taking these kinds of measures for other liberal countries. Because what I like about France is that if they do something like stuff that other countries might think like maybe that's too much, when France like breaks the taboo around it, like makes it now some other countries could refer to France as something that works or something that they have done. It doesn't seem as outrageous anymore. It doesn't seem as out of a question anymore because a country has done that, and you could refer to it as an example. Like, for example, if Germany wants to do this, or if Sweden wants to do this, or if the UK wants to do this, and somebody thinks that this might be too much, well, if France has done it already, then it doesn't seem as too much anymore. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. A lot of people think that they're very heavy-handed, though.
Yeah, well, if it produces results, here's the thing. I think a lot of people will continue to think that, but as Islamism takes more and more uh control over different parts of Europe, as it goes into the education system or into politics, into the media, then like a lot of people at some point going to be like, okay, yeah, maybe that's enough. Let's copy France. So we'll see how many people think that this is too heavy-handed as more Islamism grows in Europe and in
I
North
know, and I
America.
think it was like it really spoke for itself that like across the entire French political spectrum, people were like, "No, we're backing this teacher. This is unacceptable." Because the same thing happens
Good.
in in the UK. I mean, I will never forget what happened at the Batley Grammar School. A teacher had to go into hiding because of, again, supposedly showing drawings of the prophet or like Prophet Muhammad cartoons or something, and that teacher and his whole family are still in hiding because of the threats against them in the middle of the UK. Like, I think when the prime minister, who used to be the education minister, says that these officials are really standing at the front lines of Republican values, I think that's very salient. Like, that I never thought about it in those terms, but it's very true, and they deserve being strongly defended.
See, people have to understand that Islam is set to dominate, okay? Even if it's not like that at the beginning, it's within the DNA of the ideology. Even if the Muslims themselves who carry the virus of Islam don't have that intention, it is within the DNA of Islam. These the good Muslims are the carriers of something. They might not be bad people, but they're carrying an ideology that itself within its DNA has domination in mind, right? And it might be friendly, it might be like with peace loving, caring Muslims, but once it sits in within the population, at some point when it comes to when it gets above a higher percentage, then it will start changing, and it starts going into the next phase. And it also has this effect on other religions as well. So a lot of religions that don't have domination in their DNA, I mean, all religions are bad, but some of them don't have domination in their DNA, as an effect of being against Islam or competing Islam or fighting against Islam, they rub against Islam and they become more and more like it. You could see that in, I don't know, Hinduism or in Christianity. A lot of people, Islam has that effect on them, and because they feel threatened by Islam, they copy Islam, and they become, just as bad or just as dangerous. Again, I always say all religions are equally wrong, but not all religions are equally dangerous. Islam is by far the most dangerous, with a huge distance from the second most dangerous religion.
Well, in the modern age, a
Um,
huge body count as well.
yeah.
Um,
We got a couple of super chats.
yes, we got a couple super chats and also a comment I wanted to address. Gajan American is celebrating his membership for 27 months. That's how you know Gajan is an
27.
OG. OG. Um, saying, I know a pro-state atheist commie reverted on TikTok. A pro-state atheist Oh, interesting. Gajan, can you send this to me?
Muslim.
That would be actually really
Yes.
interesting for
Yes.
Armin to react to.
Yeah.
Um,
Please send that
I
to Susie.
there's something about I think there's, like, people that are attracted to authoritarianism, and
Right.
if you're I'm assuming this is, like, a tanky, maybe I'm wrong. And the
I
the
mean,
the
I think it's
tanky
the
when
anti-West.
you're talking about totalistic ideologies, I
Mm.
see why it's attractive. Um, go
It's
ahead.
also the anti-imperialism that they share with
Mhm.
Islam. The commie tankies and the Islamists, they like, when their hate for America and everything Western makes them allies. Which I wrote an article on, by the way, if you want to read that.
Okay, so then GJ is also celebrating his membership, saying, France, what about Christian cross necklaces and tattoos? So I have no idea what the standard is for tattoos. Like if you have a religious tattoo and you work in a public institution, I legitimately don't know what the legal standard for that is. My understanding is that the Christian cross necklace is also not accepted. That's my
Mm.
understanding. I'm not French.
Yeah, let us know, French people.
Immortal Wombat, great username, gave us a €5 super chat. Thank you,
Thank
saying,
you.
"Good evening, my adorable fellow atheist." Thank you, I feel so cute now. Um, and Angie Unier gave a $2 super chat, saying, "Thank you as always. I have no words. It's mad. We
Mm.
do live in a crazy world." Um Beatrice gave us a 20 euro super chat. Wow, that's so generous. Thank you. Saying, sadly, Europe is bowing before Islam. Do you think, Armin, what do you think about that?
I think it's a spectrum. It's not. I don't want people to treat it like as if it's a binary. It's and when it comes to a spectrum, we're leaning more and more towards Islamization. But don't think like we're not. I don't want us to exaggerate. It's not going to be a caliphate. It's not going to become the entirety of law. Is not going to be based in Sharia or like some people fearmonger. I mean, it doesn't have to be that bad for it to be extremely bad. I think like some people exaggerate. Yeah, in many places. So I'm agreeing with you. As Europe, in a lot of places, Europe is bowing before Islam, but in a lot of places it's not. Just like we saw this news, so there's resistance to it. But in many places, there's enough bowing it to Islam in Europe for it to be a problem worth fighting against. But again, it's not binary. It's not like it has completely taken over, or like it's going. And I don't think it will ever completely take it over. Even if, but Islam is such a toxic ideology that any amount of takeover is horrible and should be fought against.
It's concerning. Emma is saying, I'm French. You can wear discreet religious symbols. What does that mean? And also, Emma, what is the policy on tattoos? What is the
What
policy
if?
on
So I'm
tattoos?
assuming if you have a Christian necklace, I think you could just like tuck it in. I think that would be okay, right? But yeah, if you have I think like in the same way, if you have a cross like on your arm, but it's covered with your sleeves, then it's okay. But my question is like, what if you have a cross right here, like tattooed? Like
Well,
what if
something
it?
tells me you're less likely to be working in a public institution, anyways.
Yeah. Right. No, but what if it's okay? What if I have a cross here, right? Tattooed
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how strict these institutions are because there's a lot of institutions where it's like you have to one you already have a uniform that's very formal, or two if you have tattoos you have to cover them. Like I like to cover my tattoos when I'm at work. Um, and we got a super chat from GJ saying, "Didn't Ataturk the OG outlaw public hijabs in Turkey?" Did Ataturk ban the hijab? I obviously
No, I
the
think
Shah
there was
did.
I think there was not hijabs completely. I think there were certain types of hijab in certain places. I could look at I could look that up. Um, yeah, I think like it wasn't okay. Okay, Ataturk did implement policies that restricted the wearing of the hijab in certain. Yeah, I was correct. Okay, so he didn't ban the hijab completely, but he did implement policies that restricted the wearing of hijab in certain public spaces, such as schools and government buildings, as part of his secularization efforts in the 1920s or 30s. So I was correct. He didn't ban the hijab outright. It was kind of something similar to France right now.
Okay. And Emma has provided more insight. She's saying tattoos are okay, crosses or other jewels are okay. Hijab is seen as too much and as proselytism. This doesn't seem consistent to me as a law, if I'm being honest, at all.
What do you
But
mean? What do you mean?
well, what is deemed as like jewels versus what is deemed too much and proselytizing? That's
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I think it's don't. I think you should just make it. A law has to have a black and white element to it. It can't like it's not like a. I think any form of religious symbol on you that could be publicly seen, that should be banned in those areas that they want to ban it. Right? I
Well,
don't think they
exactly, and
have
that's
to
why
be
it
like
doesn't sound like it is that way. That's why I'm getting
it should be
confused.
that way. Yeah, I think if we can see it, that's banned. I think it should just be black and white like that. Yeah.
Um, uh, Danielle is asking, "What's your advice to people planning to be ex-Muslim?" That's a very good question, Danielle. I'm glad you asked that. Well, first of all, it depends on how old you are. If you are not financially independent, I would, and you do actually apostatize, I would probably not come out to your family and talk about your
Wow.
criticism or disbelief unless you are able to financially support yourself. Depending on what country you live in, I would also not be public. Um, you have to always think about your safety first. You know about your physical safety better than I do. Um, and I would say, join a supportive community. So you could join the Atheist Republic community on Discord. The link is in the description. And we have tons of people in our Discord who are, active all the time. And they can talk to you about your thoughts or your doubts or maybe a certain thing you're struggling with, because we have a lot of young people in our community who live all around the world in countries where, maybe their family isn't supportive, but they're safe, or maybe countries where it's very, very dangerous to be ex-Muslim. And so they can give you a really wide variety of advice depending on your location and your circumstances. But I would say do not be public about it until you can guarantee your own personal safety. That's what matters to us most. Um, and besides that, my advice is to be curious. If there's a question you have, go investigate it. It's okay. If there's something that doesn't sound right to you, like lean into that. Why does it not sound right to you? Why does something sound unbelievable? Why does something not make sense logically or is against scientific understanding? And just investigate. Allow yourself to investigate, allow yourself to ask questions. It's okay to look up information that's critical of both sides. I think really just allowing yourself to be kind of like a little detective, I think is one of the most important things you can do in practice structured critical thinking. Do you have any advice, Armin?
No, I I think that was perfect. Um,
Okay.
wow, we should, if we had more time, if Susie had more time, we should just have like a segment, like a live streams where people come ask for advice from Susie and she just answers these questions. That was beautiful. Don't you think? Like, we should get Atheist Republic to a point where we could get Susie full time. So we will have entire live streams dedicated to Susie ranting, and now another entire live stream that based on the answer that she gave here, and an other live stream that Susie just, I don't even come here as people ask questions and ask for advice, and Susie just gives advice. We should
Okay,
like,
but my
guys, get
Susie
Atheist
rant
Republic to
stream,
a point. Yes, Susie rant and
me,
Susie. So Susie rants and Susie advice.
but my rants are just about like three things, like bad sex slash gender war nonsense, um, taxes, and progressivism.
Well,
It's like
I mean,
those
well, there's
three
a lot.
things.
Well, there's a lot of that's those are three entire worlds. It's not like it's going to be repetitive. So yeah, people are happy. People really ask you. Ask Susie. Okay, so guys, get Atheist Republic to a place where we could give Susie full time, and we will have Susie rant live streams and ask Susie live streams. Two different kinds of other than the news that we have. Okay, so subscribe and make us grow this channel. Okay, so we could afford getting Susie completely on Atheist Republic. Anyways, we have to. Oh, we still have some super chats. Let's go through these fast.
Yes.
So
Angel's just celebrating her membership for 4 months. We have had 4
thank
months,
you.
if not more, since this angel graced our presence. Just, and GJ gave us another super chat saying France has a bigger percentage of Muslim population, has the biggest percentage of the Muslim population in Western Europe. That is true. Um, And really quickly, Danielle is saying, I think I feel oppressed for being gay and judged for blasphemy. Let me tell you, there are millions of people around the world that feel the same way as you, Daniel. So I think the best thing that you can do for yourself is to find community where you can feel a sense of belonging and a sense of connection and understanding from people who have been in a similar circumstance as you. because that's really good for our minds and our hearts. And so, yeah, join our Discord. There's a lot of other ex-Muslim communities out there, full of people from around the world who've gone through different experiences. But I think you'd be surprised about how many people could relate to what you're going through. I know there are dozens of people in our community who can relate to what you're going through. Um, so yeah, sending love to you. Um, and Shami is sending a super chat towards the Susie Rant Fund. The Susie
Yeah, that's
segment.
good.
I
Yes,
would love
please.
to do
Yes.
more streams.
Yes. Would you?
I would. If I did streams, it would honestly be a lot of me going through and reading articles and stuff that I've been wanting to read for a very long time, but just don't have time, and just
Right, right.
investigating like these different topics and articles together. Like there's this article
Yeah.
by this Egyptian Muslim reformer dude about how essentially the left ruined the Arab world, that I've been wanting to read for a very long time, but I just don't have time. But I would like if I had my own streams, I would like go through that kind of thing.
Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.